So as we reflect back upon the Passover holiday, we all know how careful we've been about removing chametz from our homes. We had bedikat chametz the night before, in this case 2 nights before because of Shabbat. We search every corner, every crevice for leftover chametz. We burn it in the morning. We spend a small fortune buying kosher Pesach products, even some that don't really need to say kosher Pesach. But we don't want to make a mistake. We do the same thing when we read our sacred texts. We dig deep. We review it. We analyze it, particularly the Torah itself. We look at every single sentence, every word, with a magnifying lens to extract every possible meaning we can find. You can take one verse in the Torah and go to sacred text and interpret it and spend weeks just studying that one verse because of the multiple commentaries and interpretations. And the amazing thing is that after all these generations, there are still so many new meanings to be found. So there's one verse that comes from this whole story of the Exodus that I want to review with you this morning and connect it to this Yizkor experience. In that story is a very quick line. Torah tells us Moshe took with him the bones of Joseph, who had exacted an oath from the children of Israel, saying, God will be sure to take notice of you, then you shall carry up my bones from here with you. It's in the story, chapter 13 of Exodus. Joseph got an oath that when they leave, they will take the bones. And Moshe remembers it. And that's it. We're not told how it happened, when it happened. We're just told that he did it. So the rabbis expand upon this. They want to imagine it. They want to see, how did this happen? When did Moses do it? How did Moses do it? So they went searching and they created fantastical ideas as they thought through the whole process. We do hear one other thing. We're told in this story that Moshe didn't know where the bones were. That was the problem. He was desperate to find them. But we're told that Moshe's great-great-aunt was still alive. So we're already into Midrash. That would make her, well into past 150 years old, if not more. And her name was Serach. And she reveals to Moses the hidden location. Why? Because she was there. She was there when they hid Joseph's bones, according to this fantastical idea. So what does this Midrash intend to teach us? Sometimes a tradition is not easily deciphered. By the way, the bones were found in an ossuary that had been buried in the Nile River, which is why he couldn't find it. How could he possibly know where an ossuary had buried the bones in the Nile River? But Sarah saw it happen, so she was able to tell the story. So it's a fantastical story, so we have to dig. What's the lesson? The rabbis know that this is imaginary, but they want to teach a lesson. Bringing Joseph back into the Exodus narrative brings the Egyptian story full circle. He was the one brought down into Egypt, became the first Israelite enslaved. As God remembers that divine promise to the people of Israel in Egypt, so will the Israelites remember the promise to Joseph, who saved their ancestors by bringing them to Egypt. There's another interpretation suggested by Rabbi Neil Lovinger, one of our colleagues. You recall that Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. After many years, he became prime minister. Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. He provides to them during the famine. He relinquishes the bitterness he might have felt so he can move his family forward. He doesn't want to go backwards. He wants to reunite his family. Similarly, there's a commandment in the Torah not to hate the Egyptians. even after the years of slavery and oppression. So Rabbi Lovinger writes, it's really hard not to hold a grudge. I struggle with it every single day, he writes. It's the easiest thing in the world to remember wrongs and hold on to the resentments of past humiliations. Much harder is it to be like Joseph, taking back his estranged brothers, even after they had sold him into slavery. So maybe that's why Moshe went to get Joseph's bones. He would need to remember Joseph's spiritual greatness if he was going to move his people into the future and not let them get mired in bitterness over the past. And there's another reason I'd like to suggest. What started this entire enslavement? It was when a new Pharaoh, who did not remember Joseph, arose and began to fear the Israelites. Did he really not remember him? Of course, he knew the story of Joseph, but he wasn't interested in it. That was then, this was now. And he wasn't going to let the memory of Joseph and the good that Joseph had done for Egypt interfere with what he wanted to do now with the descendants of Joseph. Control them, enslave them to build his cities. Now, as we leave Egypt, we remember what Pharaoh had forgotten, which led to his downfall. Forgetting what Joseph had done for Egypt is what led to Pharaoh and Egypt's downfall. We don't forget the past as Pharaoh had done, because forgetting the past leads to arrogance and failure. So we remember Joseph. Moses remembers Joseph and takes his bones with him. There's a very important message in all of this as we prepare now to say Yizkor. What does it mean to go back for the bones of an ancestor? And the word is fascinating. In Hebrew, the word for bone is etzem. And the same word, etzem, means essence. Etzem's a bone, and etzem is also essence. So we carry the bones/essence of the people we remember. By returning to Joseph, Moshe is making a statement about the relationship to earlier generations. Many times when we stand for Yizkor, we think about the commitments our loved ones made. I reflect on all my late relatives more during the Seders than any other time of the year. I can see the faces of all my aunts and my uncles with whom I was very close, and many of them had spent a Seder night with us in Miami. I remember my mother, my father, my grandmother, who lived with us for many years, cleaning for Pesach. I remember the sacrifices my mother made to create Jewish life each week. She was fired numerous times, in those days you could do that, for refusing to work on Shabbat or for going to work late on days when Yizkor was recited, because they didn't Zoom the Yizkor then. And she would not miss Yizkor for her father. So she'd go to work late and see what kind of gasket they would break. She would work Sunday afternoons and a few nights a week, so she would have Shabbat off. As we read the story of Ezekiel and the Valley of the Dry Bones, which prophesied the rebirth of the Jewish people, I think of the sacrifices the Israelis have made to build and preserve the Jewish state, and think about how short we fall in our support of Israel, politically, financially, personally. We do a lot, but we don't do nearly enough. The sacrifices in life, in treasure, in physical and mental health that Israelis have been making since October 7th are unimaginable. They continue to this very day, and as we know from the Vietnam experience, which traumatized our nation, we still feel it to this very day. It will go on for decades. And Israelis struggle to turn the disaster of October 7th into a truly secure future for Israel and her people. Remember, after the Yom Kippur War, there was a very popular song Ani mavtiach lach, yalda shli ktana, shezot tihiyeh hamilchama ha'achrona. I promise you, my little daughter, my little child, that this will be the last war. But the steps necessary to make that reality were not taken. It was a song, it was a dream, it was a hope, but it didn't become a reality. The greatest chance Israel has had since 1948 to turn that into a reality, ironically, is now. The elimination of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian threat, along with an expansion of the Abraham Accords, can turn that song, that prayer, that hope into a reality if we remember the past and learn its lessons. So we must partner in every way possible, politically, emotionally, financially, support Israel as she focuses on that goal of making lasting peace a reality. That is what Yizkor is about. Remembering the past, learning its lessons, and making the right resolves about the future. Not just dreaming and hoping, but resolves, actions. The Talmud says that along with the Ten Commandments, the people of Israel schlepped the bones of Joseph through the wilderness. In one ark were the bones of the person who had lived by the commandments, sheltered in the other ark. That's what the Midrash says. They took those bones of Joseph into the wilderness, into uncertain territory, into an uncertain future. But with the memory of the past that the bones of Joseph supplied, and the guidance for the future that the tablets of the commandments gave, they were able to go forward. The bones of Joseph in the same ark as the tablets, past and future together. Searching for the bones of Joseph seemingly slowed down the Exodus. They were leaving so fast, remember, they didn't even have time to bake bread. That's how we ended up with matzah. But Moses, as hurried as he was, took time to look for Joseph's bones. He wasn't leaving without them. We know there's a debate to what effort Israel should go to bring back the hostages who are no longer alive. They don't want to risk living soldiers to do that. But no agreement, no treaty, no peace treaty, no end of the war can happen without the condition that every live and dead hostage comes home. We don't leave Joseph behind. Not in Gaza, not anywhere else. At times, we may feel that the traditions of our past are burdens, encumbering us, making life more complicated, calling us to obligations when we would rather be working or relaxing. The bones of Joseph were also part of the promise of redemption, linked to a vision of the future, tied to a hope. The vision of the future gave the people strength to build the nation. If carried with proper intention, the bundle, those bones of Joseph, they're not a burden. They're an act of love. Everyone can relate to this. I remember when one of our granddaughters, who is then 10 years old, fell asleep in our bed watching a movie with us. I needed to pick her up and move her to her room. Well, she wasn't that 3 or 4-year-old granddaughter anymore. She was now the 10-year-old granddaughter, and I wasn't the 60-year-old who used to do that without any effort. But carrying this much bigger granddaughter was not a burden. A sleeping child, no matter how much bigger she has grown, is never a burden. It's lightness of being, promise for the future. So back to Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones, God asked Ezekiel, "Shall these bones live?" Then suddenly, there's a rattling sound as the bones fitted themselves together. Sinews appeared, flesh covered them, they're overlaid by skin. Come, O wind, from every quarter, says Ezekiel. Breathe into these dead bones that they may come to life. And Ezekiel prophesied as he had been told. They came to life, they rose on their feet, a vast multitude. They represent the bones of Joseph, that if you carry that memory with you, then the nation is strong and the nation is revived. And God said in Ezekiel, mortal, Ben Adam, these are the whole people of Israel. They say, our bones are dry, our thread of life is broken. Therefore, prophesy to them, I will open your graves, of my people, and bring you out of them, and restore you to the land of Israel. It's a metaphor. He's not talking about reviving the dead people. He's talking about reviving the nation after it suffered an exile, another exile for 2,000 years, and now the trauma of October 7th. Open your graves, and don't forget the bones, and then you will be restored as a nation. So as we stand for Yizkor today, let's reflect on the Atzmot Yosef, the bones of Joseph, the bones, the memory, the essence of our ancestors, for they are the very essence of the people that we remember. We are bone of their bones, essence of their essence. Burdens can become blessings. Sadness of recalling loved ones ends up lifting us up. The bones of those we loved are never a burden. Their memories are always something that strengthens us. They are a blessing. Like Moses, our teacher, let's never forget the bones of Joseph. Let's carry them with us wherever our journey takes us, and then they shall live again.